It was halfway through the refit and the Canadian and I decided we were going to do it big tonight. We were way ahead of schedule and the entirety of the important load testing of the bars and the lifts were over and done with. It was just a matter of cleaning everything from the fly floor down to the pit. We left instructions with the noise boy just in case we were too hungover to work the next morning. As soon as 5 PM happened, the Canadian and I were already dressed and ready to go. The plan was to come back to the ship in the very early hours, as we heard of some bars that were open till 4 AM. This was looking to be a mental night. We both left the ship with transit beers for us to scull on the way down to town. It was only a 4-pack each, but that was way more than enough. As each can was finished, they got crushed in our hand and threw over our shoulders. Very naughty, I know, but we didn't really give a shit. We went to the first bar, and it was a grotty little shithole. We went in regardless. It was near enough empty. We went up to the bar and ordered 2 double vodkas and Red Bulls and a pint of cider each. The rule was every vodka Red Bull had to be necked and you had to take your time with the pint. Naturally, the vodka Red Bulls went down quickly. When you necked a Vodka Red, it goes straight to your head. Oh, fuck, that rhymed. Anyways, as we finished our pint, we decided to do another Vodka Red each and a pint of beer before we moved on to the next bar. As we sculled our drinks, I noticed the song Save Tonight by the Eagle-Eyed Cherries being played. I don't know why I noticed it. Mainly because it reminded me of growing up and it was about 10 years out of date. We left this dive bar and we found our way to the next bar. It was a livelier establishment and it looked to be a chain bar. It was down to generic fixtures and fittings as though it was a uniform. We noticed a few other crew members in this watering hole as we went up to the bar and ordered another 2 double voddies and reds with a pint of ale each. One of the crew members happened to be an ETA and he suggested that when we finished up we should find the English bar, as everyone that was out and about would meet up there. The ETA tried to give me directions, but as I was getting well on the way to getting fucked beyond belief, I couldn't remember them when he made me repeat the directions. So out of frustrations, he picked up a beer mat from the bar and scribbled down a street plan for us to follow. The beer mat was a bit hard to read as it was dark coloured and soggy. I put it into my pocket and sculled my body red. The ETA and his friends decided to leave while the Canadian and I continued our drinks. After all, we had only got to this bar. After ordering our second round, I got a tap on the shoulder from the Canadian and he pointed out that Save Tonight was playing again. This was strange, but we continued to hammer away our drinks and sing along to this song that was following us around. Save Tonight had finished and we were drinking a pint of Guinness each. It was a nice cold pint and the barmaid even managed to draw a clover leaf. This pint was going down nice and we decided to attempt to follow the map to the English bar once we finished. Finding the English bar was rather tricky. Both the Canadian and I were not able to see straight, let alone read a map on a soggy beer mat. On our way we ran the gauntlet of hookers who were trying hard to get our business, though we didn't have any of it. One girl came up to me and asked, "Do you want to have some fun?" I replied with, "Sorry love, but I'm hungry. I'm after a steak." The hooker, who happened to be witty as fuck, came out with, "You can eat me." I laughed and said sorry but no. Another girl approached the Canadian and tried it on with him. The Canadian thought he could cut her shorts with, "Yeah love, I'm gay." But the hooker jumped in with, "If you're gay I can turn you straight with my cunt." I burst out laughing so hard I nearly wet myself. I grabbed the Canadian's arm and dragged him off in my wake of laughter. We eventually made it to the English bar and it was full of just crew. There's a live band playing and we went up to the bar. Once we received our round of double bodies and red with a pint of lager, I noticed the band playing Save Tonight. I shoved the Canadian and I said, "Look man, it's that song again." We picked up our drinks and found a table. We put our drinks down and began to sing along to the song again. Save Tonight became the anthem of Refit. We sculled our double body and reds, then began to take it easy on our lagers. The ship's art gallery salesman noticed us and came over to join us. He was once a big shot banker that jumped off the cocaine-fueled bandwagon just before the big crash that turned the world to shit with austerity. For the rest of the story, I shall refer to him as the banker. The banker was a lippy cunt, but he was a good guy. He asked us what we were drinking and we told him each round was 2 double vodkas and Red Bulls with a different pint each time. "Are you up for a challenge?" said the banker. "What do you want to do?" asked the Canadian. "The 10 Jagerbomb challenge," said the banker with a smug grin. I had to bow out of this challenge as Jägermeister does not agree with me. As soon as it goes down, it instantly comes back up. The Canadian insisted that he would take up the challenge on the condition that I would have to make up the difference with vodka Red Bulls throughout the night to keep us level. I agreed. All three of us went up to the bar. I ordered myself 5 double vodka Red Bulls to drink whilst these two were doing their challenges. The Canadian explained to the barmaid what they intended to do, and she racked up 2 lines of 10 Jaeger bombs. The banker explained the rules to the Canadian. Once a drink is done, the empty has to be turned upside down and back in on the line. The first to do this without puking is declared the winner. The Jaeger bombs were ready and we had gathered a crowd around us. I pulled out my phone and began to record. Both the banker and the Canadian had their first drink in their hands and the barmaid counted down 3, 2, 1, go. They both tipped the first bomb down their throats, followed by the second one. The Canadian necked his third one before the banker finished his second. The Canadian slammed his fourth one. The banker was gaining ground. They're both neck and neck on their 5th drink. On the 6th drink, I noticed the banker pinch his nose as he tipped his drink down his neck. They were still neck and neck with their 7th and 8th. The banker was still pinching his nose on his 9th. I can only assume that it was to stop the smell of the bomb from making him sick. The Canadian edged back in front and started his 10th drink as the banker was halfway through his 9th. The Canadian slammed down his 10th and the banker finished his 10th 2 seconds later. The Canadian won and gave out a victory belch. This belch went on for at least a minute. It was vile and I could smell it. The pungent smell just lingered as though it was dog shit. I stopped filming and raised the Canadian's hand and shouted, "Flawless victory!" The banker shook the Canadian's hand and I had finished my full vodka Red Bull. We got another round in and I went back to our table. A few minutes later I was back on par with the Canadian and we continued our drinks, but we had slowed down at this point. I was feeling wired to high how, charged full of caffeine and taurine. I felt invincible, my eyes were wide open, I was bouncing on the balls of my feet, which at the time I was unaware of doing this. The banker went off and returned a few minutes with a bunch of girls from the ship. I was paired up with the youth officer and the second in charge of the youthies. Her boss was the youth director. After about an hour and another round, the youth officer and I were having a good old chinwag and she pulled me over to the dance floor to dance to the live band. We were dancing and grinding and before I knew it, she pulled me in and planted a kiss on my lips. We were chewing off each other's faces hard. She whispered in my ear, "You've got your own cabin, haven't you?" And I whispered back into her ear, "Yeah, do you want to come back to mine?" And she smiled and grabbed me by the hand and dragged me towards the exit. The Canadian noticed me and gave me the double thumbs up. The youth officer and I walked to the main road and hailed a cab. We were taken back to the gates of the port and got out. We showed our ship's passes to the port security and entered the long tunnel back towards the dry dock. We made it back to the gangway through the ship and back to my cabin. I opened up the door and we peeled off each other's clothes. The youth officer was quite dominant and pushed me onto my bed, then began to ride me. There was no foreplay, just dry entry and rampant pounding. Every time I tried to fondle her tits, she pulled my hands away. She wouldn't even let me place my hands on her hips. When she got what she wanted, she jumped off and without saying anything, she got dressed and left. I felt used. Used and discarded. Used and discarded like a used snot rag. But I wasn't upset. I cracked open another beer from my fridge, drank it slowly, then went to bed.